that went around to a lot of high school classes, college classes called Time Is. So I thought that a teacher is still doing a class on time. I just thought that was great. We're still trying to figure it out. I grew up with a family of the 50s, real stable, good. My mom was a little bit older in that she was a little more old-fashioned than some of the 50s moms. She sewed all my clothes, made bread. She was a home mom, was always there for us. And she had us grow up into a very structured reality. We had a calendar. Things we did was put on the calendar, and what time will you be home? If we weren't home then, we were in big trouble. And so it was very protective. That was her way of protecting us from the hard times she went through, of the Depression, the war. She was an orphan herself. She didn't have good ideas on what a mom was with all that. She was a great mom. And but then I didn't feel so. I was, even before all this freedom came, I was feeling uncomfortable. I didn't want to, as all teenagers do, answer to authority, but I didn't really have that rebellious spirit in me. Because I was a good girl. I had respect, but just something wasn't right. I felt closed in. My goal in graduating from high school, and I'm so glad I can consciously remember it, because you're not very conscious when you're 18, sorry to tell you. It's kind of a sweet innocence. But I remember my goal was to not wear a watch and not have a calendar. I did not have college goals. Which I don't regret, but to me it was a sign of the times. And I succeeded in that goal for about 20 years. I didn't have a watch or a calendar. I wanted to, well now that I understand the earth and the more indigenous Indian native ways, what I was looking for then, but there weren't words then for it, I wanted to move with the seasons. I wanted to move with the sun and the moon. And when I was up, my first exploring, I'd just be walking the mountain. I grew up in Marin. Just watching the sunset and the moon rise without feeling I had to be home. Or I had to, it's kind of a sense of no responsibility, but I wanted to learn what being responsible for myself was. And with that, again, there wasn't language in those days to be responsible for the planet, but there was no idea of that, those words then. None of that, none of those words. It was just, I wanted to go. I wanted to fly. I wanted to explore the realms of who we were, because who we were looking, it was too structured. It didn't look kind and giving. Though my parents were kind and giving, they were very community involved. They helped with all the Campfire Girls, Boy Scouts, all these things. But somehow, why wasn't it enough? And that's kind of the question my dad has here, and of why wasn't that enough? Well, we wanted to do what you just saw, but that hadn't happened yet. There was kind of a feeling, people go, I'm 45, and people go, I don't know how I look age-wise, but I do see 45-year-old people that look kind of old and kind of set in their ways, and I know I'm different that way. So when they look at me, I say, well, I'm a child of the 60s. I'm the Peter Pan type. I will never grow up. So wherever you guys are at today, keep that. That's one message. Don't change. Just let it blossom. Because that sense of youth, I think, kind of dies with a sense of responsibility, and I have to do this, I can't follow my heart on this, and that's what starts making us get old. I still feel I can follow my heart. I still feel like I can go out there and do flips in a crowd. Okay, on the way over here, the plane was 2 hours late taking off. I brought a tennis ball with my 4.5-year-old daughter. We were throwing it against the wall and racing it and chasing it. Everyone else in the airplane terminal is sitting and feeling like they have to keep their kid in a little child car seat to keep them from running off. I mean, they're all locked into their chairs, all ages, and the babies are being taught this. You stay right near mama and you don't. 2 hours waiting. And here, me and my daughter are playing with this tennis ball, and if it happens to accidentally bump somebody, they giggle and laugh and throw it back. I mean, we could have gotten something really good going, right? But I just kept it between me and my daughter, because basically I was just trying to run down her energy, so on the plane she'd take a nap and go to sleep. I was being logical. I was looking ahead to the future and planning. At the same time, I knew there were no rules. Just because there's a bunch of strangers, I didn't have to protect myself from them. We're all humans. But you've noticed everywhere, I was seeing the little kids being protected. They weren't, none of the parents said, oh, go play too. They're all in a sense of caution, protection, fear, rather than, that looks like a friendly mom and a daughter, go play. We didn't ask anyone to play, because I was just kind of watching, just keeping this little circle with my daughter. So I taught her something really big there, which I, as an adult, I really enjoyed. Because I know she noticed no one else was playing, but she also noticed her mom, it didn't matter. So it's kind of that playful spirit that you saw in the 60s that blew wide open. Here we are, a whole bunch of 20-year-olds, some out of college, some like me, kind of having this feeling of there aren't any rules. Who said when you're an adult you have to be like this now? So, okay, there's no war going on, it's about to start again, right? But it's just this sense of how do we express our excitement, our exuberance for life? I mean, I remember also when I was 18 or somewhere in there, just kind of looking at my hands, what do I do with all this energy? And somehow that was kind of a new word. I'd come home talking about energy to my mom. I don't know what you mean by energy. I was like, Mom, it's like, I was talking to some of your classmates before, and just feeling, they were talking, what is energy? And if you just feel it with your hands, there's a warmth there. It feels like a magnet kind of pushing against itself. So you start there, and you can just, energy is who we are. We just happen to be materialized here. So just to say we can throw a ball in the middle of somewhere. Okay, another one, I take my daughter on errands, 10 errands around town. Usually you keep the kids home because they kind of slow you down. She goes with me on roller skates. We go into stores, and she's a good roller skater. She goes down the aisle with glass bottles, and I don't even have to worry about her. And it's kind of like, there's signs now that say no skateboarding, but they don't have a sign that says no roller skating in the store because nobody does it yet. It's like there's no rules here, so why not? I mean, I love that I have a little kid because it allows me to, again, realize that we're free. And most parents, it's like, no, you can't do that. It doesn't look right. Or, we're already, I'm sure all of you have kind of a stigma of how you do things because it's proper. But yeah, we want to be proper. We want to, look nice so people don't go, they got a problem. But at the same time, how many of us are just, wow, you must be into something really good. You just a little bit extra. And I'm afraid most of us look for a little bit extra through a wild party, an all-night party, or some kind of, mind-blowing drugs. And in that day we were too. But it's like, how can we get just that little bit extra just by whatever this is? How can we get that? So in the 60s there was a lot of experimentation because our parents had pretty much had it locked up. Okay, we now got materialism to a perfect place. But the trouble is, life doesn't want to get locked up. So it was kind of a rebellion against that box of, we're not in a box, we're on a planet. Because then environmentalism started, and it, now we all know through your education that we're on a planet. In the 50s, we didn't know. We were in the United States, which was the best. There happened to be other countries here and there, and it happens to be a globe. But it wasn't like you guys have been educated already. The language has changed. So a few stories that will just give you an idea that I shared with your professor here that inspired my visit. Okay, in high school, I had an art class. It was a design class, kind of open-ended. I like 3D things better than flat drawing, so it was an art class. We were supposed to draw 2 pictures, and then we were going to cut them. There were 2 opposite pictures, and cut them. So you look at it one way, you see one picture, and the other way, you see another picture. So I started doodling. Paisleys, you all know what paisleys are? Well, no one had really focused on them before, but all of a sudden, I remember one girl drawing one, and everyone was like, it was the neatest thing at lunch hour. Wow, look at this beautiful drawing she made. We never noticed the intricacy of a paisley. It was like we're all describing it, it's like a dewdrop, and it contains the universe, and just, it's like, oh. So I was starting to draw little paisleys and designs, and then I take it out, because it takes a long time to doodle on a 11 by 14 page. Take it out at lunch hour and in between classes out in the hallway, and had a whole bunch of pens. Felt tip markers just came out too. I started with ink pens, but then felt tip markers had just been invented. So a lot of things you take for granted. This is the 60s, and all of a sudden, full color ink markers. So I was drawing with them, and then I would hand them out, and all these people started helping me. So it was about a 30-person project, probably. So we had all these doodles upon doodles upon doodles. When I turned it in to my teacher, he thought just I had done it, which was fine. He gave me an A++ and said, don't cut it up, because I was going to do another one black and white. I said, no, you've never seen anything like it. It was just a psychedelic doodle. He'd never seen anything, and he showed it to the other art teachers. It's just so. So that was kind of the beginning of realizing something could come out of me that's incredible. It was kind of the first, and my parents even, they still have a copy of that photo. I took a photo of it and passed out little pictures of it. So, then kind of jump ahead a couple years. This is 1969. I was wandering around, already hitchhiked up and down the coast, California. In those days, you saw if you saw a bus or a van, period, or a vehicle with some kind of paint on it or flowers sticking out of it, something with a little character, you know, here comes your ride. And you knew it would be a good experience. There was already, just by the nature of it, kind of a bonding, a sense of tribe. Now that I've been living in tribal country with a lot of Indians, I know what tribe is. It was the hippies in the 60s. It was a sense of support. There was a couple years I didn't have money in my pocket, and I don't feel like I lived off of people, but I never went hungry. It was just everyone took care of everyone. And, oh, they need a ride. You know, they look like a good person. You'd get in a car with 10 other people that were hitchhiking, and every now and then you'd see people that you saw on your last trip up and down the coast. So I'd already been flowing in this motion of just, you know, you just go and things happen and life is good. And there wasn't even a sense of protection or, it just wasn't. I'm sure a lot of people had bad experiences, but partly just I had because of my good parents and who knows what, I had good experiences. Thank you very much. And so I ended up at San Francisco State. I was doing a photo project for a teacher there, and a guy was handing out yellow buttons, just plain yellow. So of course, what's your yellow button for? You know, even if you didn't know him. If something was different, you'd ask somebody. There wasn't a sense of, well, I don't know what he's into. You know, everyone was curious. So he'd tell us, well, I'll give you one, but you have to do this. Okay. Meet at Castro and Market, which is like a 5-street intersection in San Francisco, at 12 noon on Tuesday, in a yellow cab. Okay, all right. And, you know, no further questions, I'll do it. So me and a couple other friends, we took that cab, and it was probably every cab in town, maybe some from down here too, intersecting at 12 noon, big traffic jam. Why? So they can make a video. They had cameras on the rooftops, on the street side, maybe even a helicopter, I don't know. They just made this amazing video of these yellow vehicles coming together. And that night, I went home. I guess I was staying, I don't remember. But I remember being home and watching TV with my folks. Hey, there I am. I was sitting in front of a yellow cab, you know, waving. You know, and it was like, so my parents had an idea, well, she was on the news. Well, something's going on. You know, something's going on. And by the time the police came there for traffic control, no one knew what it was. The video cameras were gone. It was just, no one knew. No one ever knew, you know, what happened. And nothing bad happened. The cab company made some money. It was an event. So just somebody masterminding this free energy that was kind of oozing out of everyone and doing something totally fun, like frolicking in the park and bringing music there, just like hundreds, thousands of people would take part because everyone wanted to be in on this community event that our parents just weren't thinking of, you know. They wanted to make a stable reality for their kids, and we're like, not that stable, okay? You know? And then I was, there's not too many tents in backyards in San Francisco, but somehow I ended up living in a little tent in someone's backyard. And I went inside to help cook dinner. I think I was trading for cooking meals. And on the table was a magazine about this Monday night class. This hippie guy, a little older than me, that was an assistant professor at San Francisco State in the English department, was about ready to leave. No, on the magazine article was about just his class. So I went to this class, it was Monday, and I found out at the class that he was about to leave that night to go on a tour of the whole United States. This is the first time I've even heard of him. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. Because I've been hearing over the last few months with different rides I'd gotten about, ooh, let's do a caravan. You know, oh, let's put the circus on the road. Or all of a sudden there was a sense of sharing. This is beautiful here, let's go share it all around the country. Do kind of a medicine show like the old days or something. So it was in the air, and here was somebody that was doing it. Oh, I'm in the right place, you know, this guy's for real. And he was talking about concepts that were kind of new, bringing in new language, mostly talking about truth. You know, what's new about that? We're talking about what is really true in the moment, not, you know, talk about your emotions or talk about the spirit or talk about the aura you see or talk about, it was kind of opening up a new kind of language. I really liked what he was saying. And they said, okay, everybody go on this side of the room that wants to come but doesn't have a ride. It was about 50 people. I think I'll go over there. That looks like a dead end. So I went outside in the parking lot. The day before, I met some guys who had a little rainbow patch. And in those days, this is interesting for you because you take rainbows for granted. They're everywhere, in marketing and everywhere. There weren't rainbows those days. In Noah's Ark stories and children's stories, that's about it. Not in fabric. Fabric was one color or another. Let alone paisley fabric. None of that. This is an interesting idea. In furniture, So there was a rainbow patch. And it was just really neat. Really, now you look at them, they look kind of dorky, you know. But it's really not even beautiful, but just like, oh, that's really good, you know. Can I have one? So he gave me one. So that night, I had this little rainbow patch. And I went to one bus. I knocked on the door. Do you have room? Oh yeah, we have room. I went in. There was all the seats were taken out, but they hadn't fixed up the van yet to be at home, the bus. It was all empty. Well, we're getting it together. We'll have it together in a few weeks. I went, they're leaving tonight. So I went to another van and I put my rainbow patch up in the window. So here's my ticket. Do you have room for me? Yeah. There's a guy and his dog. Again, no judgment, no sexual innuendos, whatever you call it. Just he had an extra bunk, he had an extra sleeping bag, and yeah, I have room for you. Well, my stuff's right up the hill, and I'm getting it. It's like, well, I don't want to miss the pullout. He wanted to be right in when he left too. Okay, if it's not too far away. So he went and got my stuff, and we got back just when the caravan was pulling out. Beginning of a 4-month tour of the United States. I'd never been outside of the Bay Area. And it was excellent. And my parents are like, what are you doing? I start sending them newspaper clippings back home of what we were doing. It's like, again, it's newsworthy. Something's going on. And this is a book I'm going to hand over here. It's about Stephen, the man who led the tour. The reason the caravan was doing this, because he was a good speaker, an English major, and because he was a full-on hippie exploring other realms, he had a gift of words, of what words were coming in, what language. And he was invited to a convention of ministers. All the kids were leaving the church, all the young people in the 60s. They were all out looking for something else, not this structure. And here was a man attracting hundreds of young people. Saying, what are you telling them? Because you're talking about spiritual realities that we're not. And he told them, and they liked what he said. So they invited him out to their churches all over the country. And then they tied in some other university campuses. So he had an itinerary, not down in the South, because the movie Easy Rider had just come out. The South didn't want to know yet. Didn't want to know. So everywhere else but the South, we had an itinerary. So from state to state, this is 40 painted nicely, but rainbows, vans, buses, living vehicles we were living in, going across state lines. And the police would meet us at the state line. They would call to the next town saying, this man has an itinerary. He's got this caravan of vehicles. I don't know how they describe them. Where can they park? So we were welcomed. We had parking places. And we called it taking the hippie off of the little oasis of San Francisco. It was an experiment to us. Can we survive up there? Can we survive? But then it was kind of pure. It wasn't like, oh, you dirty hippies. The language wasn't out there. It was, what's going on in San Francisco? It was like as if this was the first time you saw this. And it looked pretty. They're having a good time. What's going on? So that was the question in those days. It was really just meeting eye to eye, some old maybe policeman on the street, and just him looking at a hippie for the first time, and just the main thing was to have a good experience. Clear, not just, oh, give them a good trip and make them wonder what you are, but just talk to them, soul to soul, eye to eye, heart to heart, and real. Just be real. And doors open. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. So when I ended up in the Southwest, and the sun was going down, it was a yellow field. I still look for that yellow field. Where was I? Can't find it again, because I live down there now. But I just thought, well, it's time to get off. And even the people I was with a different band. Then I could just change different groups. I had a lot of different experiences. I said, no, you can't leave. We're almost done. You can't. Yeah, I can. So I had a new dress that one lady in St. Louis had given me, beautiful gypsy flowing dress, and I just felt perfect. Like, what more do I need? I've been taken care of. And I just got off and walked off into that field. It was time to go. And there was I think about those days, because now that I know how to plan my reality and take care of my kids, it was just time to go and walk off in that field, and the buses just drive by. And I owe somebody something, but I think I've paid back somewhere, because I remember there was a trailer there with some blankets on it, and it was getting cold, and I picked some dried flowers, and I found a little bottle, and I put the flowers in the bottle and left it on the table and borrowed one of his blankets, or whoever it was. It's like I needed that, and I left something. And to this day, that person's, where did that vase of flowers come from in the middle of nowhere? So maybe, hopefully I touched that person in the way they helped me. Because then I just hitchhiked into LA and connected with some friends. One time on this caravan in New York City, when everyone says they're from New York City, I tell them the story, because this is my experience of New York City, and I don't know, I'm sure other people in those days had that experience, but not now. Because I went to see an aunt and uncle there, who were always giving me beautiful Christmas presents. But I didn't know them too well, so I knew I really should visit them. So I got off the caravan outside of New York, because I think they had a gig somewhere outside. Hitchhiked in, got a ride with a DJ, a real friendly guy, and dropped me off, visited my aunt and uncle. They had to go to work the next morning. He just said, lock up when you're done, and I did. No thoughts of where am I, how am I going to get where, nothing. It was, I guess you call it living in the moment. But everything good had happened so far, there was no reason to question, how am I going to do the next step? I mean, I still wonder. And it's a pleasure for me to talk about it every time, because I go, how did I do that? How did I do that? So I'm walking out the street, and I said, well, I need to get from here to there, wherever there was, so you hitchhike, that's how you do it. Over on this side of the coast. Someone walks up to me and says, they didn't say little girl, I mean I was 19 then, but just said, you don't hitchhike here. I don't think, what a concept. Not you don't hitchhike here. What's wrong with here and what's wrong with hitch? You know, it just hadn't entered my mind. This danger safety thing, you know, which they already had going in New York, probably always have, always will, you know. Okay, so he handed me some subway tokens. Okay, well, that's what's next. So I'm walking down the subway stairs, and this woman about my age goes, are you okay? I go, well, I don't know what I said, but basically she took me home, fed me a macrobiotic, you know, really nice vegetarian, wholesome food. Said I reminded her of someone named Dove that she had known that kind of passed through town. Another woman that walked with the angels, so to speak. You know, I reminded her of someone, just kind of my oh, okay, pure innocence. How did I keep this pure? So then she said, I guess she didn't have a place for me to stay. I didn't ask. She said, I know a good place, and it was a yoga ashram somewhere in New York City. So she took me there, and I stayed for a few days. And Peter Max came by. You know who he is? He's an artist, he's an excellent artist. And the main yoga guy didn't come, but some other yogis were there from India. So we fed him dinner, and remember everyone wore white, and I had a white petticoat in my luggage. So I remember wearing my white petticoat, so I matched. And at dinner one day, someone said, "Oh, I saw these painted buses down the road." Oh, there's my ride. It was the caravan. And I didn't spend days of, oh my God, how am I going to find? I mean, I didn't think that way at all. It's so amazing. But it's because there's a whole community of people living the same way. And how we all got, I mean, our minds weren't totally blasted by drugs. I mean, there was a sense of reality, but there was a community of support saying, let's figure it out a little bit different way. Let's all help each other. Let's all live in the moment, and just do what's next. So it was a lot easier. I mean, I don't think you could do that in New York City today. I don't know, maybe 20 years from now. See if my daughter will do that. That's the problem. I did this to my parents, so what's my daughter going to do? But I have fun with her. My parents didn't take me roller skating in stores, too, so maybe I'm trying to say I'm right. I'm trying to, in my own way, say I'm right with you. I'm right with you. I don't want a sense of division. And there's a lot of ways now of supporting each other emotionally in growth, realms of growth that our parents just weren't aware of, that I'm really grateful for, that I can pass on to my kids. So now, where I live, it's like we might have to move in a year, and I've been there for a long time. We're on a creek, I'm 5 minutes from my job. Life's pretty perfect for me right now. And then the person that owns the land says we might have to move. But because of my past, I'm like, oh great, something else is going to happen. Because it's always been good. And yes, I've just gotten over a hard marriage. I won't say bad. And that part was, you might say, painful, difficult. I learned a lot, but I won't say, oh, I wish it didn't happen. Because life, in its essence, is good. And everything happens for a reason. I really believe that. I know that's a belief structure, but if I can garner something out of it, it turns it to good. So I learned how to demand truth, that I have a right to do that. I learned how to be more aggressive, and I know I learned that from my daughter, because she's real aggressive. So through a hard marriage, I learned some things I needed to learn. And if I didn't learn them all my life, I would have been, I think, a lesser person. So I have to have gratitude, even on something that happened to me for 5 solid years. Because I pull out of that. What did I learn? Like when I'm really sick, I'm very much into natural medicine, herbs, and it's kind of a discovery process because it's not something our grandmas and moms taught us. So it's a learning process. Okay, I have a really bad flu. How am I going to get better? Drink ginger tea, or eat this diet or that. It's kind of there's beginning to be more and more information in that if I do get sick, which is hardly ever now, is to say, I learned a way of healing myself, and when I'm in the depths of feeling terrible, it's like, oh good, I'm going to learn how to fix this, then I'll be able to share it. So to me, anything bad, when you're in the bottom of bad, what am I learning? What am I learning in these pits? Because we all go through it, we have to. But once you start thinking, what am I learning, then you start going up. Because you're pulling yourself up not only for yourself, but to share to other people. And as we get stronger, what's more better thing to say, well, I've been there. I've been, to me it was an emotionally abused, but I know what abuse feels like now. So now I can help other women in that way. And that makes it beautiful rather than ugly, I'm never going to talk about it. And that's kind of what our parents were taught. Something terrible happens, you don't talk about it, you just kind of forget about it. But to me, it's you learn what was beautiful there, what human quality were you weak on. If something happens, it just means something was weak in your body or something was weak in your emotional structure, so you fell into it. But your lesson was to find your own personal way out, and by finding that, you become more whole, and then you can share that wholeness with other people. But this, again, are really intellectual terms that were not known in the 60s. We were just in it together, and the person who could make it the most fun and the most celebrating, they weren't the winner. They weren't, wow, this person did it. It was just this whole sense of unity. It was like our first experience of, there wasn't a president of the board anymore. You know, we were all just blowing bubble, passing the jar of bubbles together. And we were all in it together. So I think that was the awakening. That slowly awakened to, we're all on this earth together. It awoke into something that's real important now of, you know, we're cutting down too many trees or all that whole idea, but that was the start of the 60s of, you know, just because you got your family nice and secure, what about your neighbors? But even now, I mean, just like at that airport, kids are so, you know, stranger danger. Don't, you say hi to kids. I'm a mom with a daughter. I say hi to kids because I respect that freedom in them. And they've already been taught, what's that lady saying hi to me? I don't know her. Fear. And I was like, oh, no, you know. So I kind of get that kid's eye, you know, around the corner and wink at him or something. Just, it's like, it's okay. You know, there is life outside your family that's okay. We're taught such, so maybe it will blow open again in maybe such a gentle way as it was the 60s. Because I know there's generations of kids right now that are being scary out there. And it is, I agree. I do live in a happy community where people still say hi to each other. That's kind of the fun thing of where I live. Of strangers come and they're walking, taking a walk in the morning, and people are waving to them in the cars. It's the kind of neighborhood I live in, and I don't think I could live anywhere else. It's why are you looking at me? What are you going to take from me? You know, it's kind of. In a grocery store the other day, you know, the guys that kind of pick up all the carts. Well, I was driving my cart back to the place. You know, it takes a little extra effort. But I saw this old man doing that. You know, for whatever reason, he was doing this little job, and I said, "Thank you. Should so many people care?" That's what he said to me, and I just felt like, boy, that made my day. You know, he saw that I wanted to help him, and he acknowledged me. So to me, it's not, yeah, it's these big gatherings of celebration, but it's just your day-to-day reaching out and touching someone. I think in the 60s, a lot of that went on. And some in a real comical jester kind of way, but also in just a real, hey, brother, peace, you know, there's a lot of that going on, and just connection. We're all in it together, you know, we all agreed on peace now, instead of fear. So it's just a lot of younger people saying, I missed something out, missed out on something, man. Can we do that again? I think so. But I was talking to a few of you earlier, I think it has to be on a bigger way, a more global way. Some of my friends have been to other third world countries and really respected the old medicine women or men with their herbs. Instead of the real medical nurses coming, we have the drug cure for what's ailing your people, and what you're doing is mishmash. For people of a more earthy understanding, saying, oh, your ways are beautiful. You know, hope you're teaching someone. Maybe they'll teach that person, or maybe they teach someone in their village. Because right now, all the young people in indigenous cultures and third world countries are looking towards America. Wow, we want what they have. Now look at all the stuff they have, and look at all the comforts, and some of these people have never even sat in a soft chair, and you know, they're getting, not let alone the Coca-Cola and rock and roll, they just, oh yeah, we want that. So to just people getting more earthier and more environmentally, you know, and they look like they're labeled, I don't know what they're labeled now. I don't know. spirited people that believe that the earth is something really important. And these simple folks are living in simple ways and admiring them for it. And part of the simple ways is just like me helping that man with his cart. That old grandpa can take care of it. Oh, yes. It'll help him. Or just, Jerry Garcia was talking about just living with simple ways. What do I really need for life? Can I walk out the door where I am and just be gone for a couple of weeks? Go take my tent and live up on a hill? I mean, what would you miss? What would you miss? It's just getting down to what's important and turning around behind you, those of you who are past-oriented, and saying thank you. To me, we're living on our past because we haven't said thank you yet. We haven't completed yet. Telling whatever you feel your parents tried to give you, whether they were successful or not, turn around and tell them thank you for trying. Thank you for, that's not what you wanted to hear, but they were trying. Just thank you for that effort. Because you guys are slowly awakening to effort. And it looks like to make an effort, you have to, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to get this job, and I have to take these courses. That equals effort. But effort, too, is turning around and seeing where you came from. And did you put gratitude in all those little places of somebody giving some of this energy to you, in whatever form it was? Because that completes it. That kind of frees you up from your past. Because if you were afraid or angry, I can't stand that person. Well, they were trying. They're trying. So part of this whole celebration feeling is we're all trying together to have a good time. And basically, that's all we're trying to do, right? And it's nice if you have a job that pays the bills and da-da-da. But you're always looking ahead to the weekend or whatever. We're trying to just have a good time. And this guy, he's got a kind of a sparkle in his eye. You can tell that's probably why he took his class. Looks like he has a good time with life, You can help us figure it out, But part of that is that your faith and your innocence hasn't been harmed, that it's going to work out no matter what. I really want that for you all. That it's going to work out no matter what you do. But if you want it to work better, then you just give it a little more attention. Just a little more attention. Not in the future, but just right here. What can I do a little bit better today? What can I do? I can smile at someone, hey, how you doing, and just really surprise them, or what can I do just a little bit better? And that could just turn that effort just a little bit. All of a sudden, you can just write that paper really good and get an A, because you charged up your heart, you charged up, you care. All those words have something to do with time. And being here and being, if we all just sat for a moment, be quiet, all of you would be thinking about something else than right here. Or, I don't know how many of you have meditated before, but if you try, you sit there, and all these thoughts start coming in. What's meditation? All these thoughts are just, but the idea is to let all those thoughts just float away like bubbles, and just watch them, but let them go, not do nothing with them, and all of a sudden, at some point, all of a sudden you're empty. And it's the strangest feeling. There's nothing there, and you're not asleep. You're just empty. But that's one level of meditation, and it's called just being here now. Being present. Nothing is going on. And yet, it's an energizing point because nothing's going on. It creates a void. Everything's going on. All of a sudden, you can hear a lot clearer. You can hear something that you can never even notice before. Or to me, when I'm going through stuff, I take a walk out on our beautiful rocks of Sedona, and I might walk for miles or hours. I walk until I get that quiet place. I don't like to sit still for a long time, so my meditation is walking, is hiking, and surrounding me with no linear lines. I don't think I could survive or live in a city. Because, I could probably let the neon lights kind of, vibrate me into a stillness, but I'd rather have only, all of nature grows in a spiral, all the trees, so that's quite different than buildings with straight lines like this. So it's kind of part of what we're looking for, that spiral. A lot of the movements you saw in that video were just people moving in spirals, just dancing. It was kind of freeing up this sit straight and be still. You know, it's freeing. That's why you feel so good after you've been dancing. So if you're out in nature with all those spirals and jagged lines and distances, you know, for miles, all you can do is just look for miles and just see the earth. Now that I've noticed, I tend to always live in places like that. Hopefully I always will. And I think it's very human. Unfortunately, a lot of us only can take vacations to be there, but I want to live, and so I can see for miles. There's nothing that man has said, no, it has to be structured. And that allows me to be comfortable occasionally wearing a watch and having a calendar, which I do. My life is very, you know, I got here and I get off the plane and hey, it works. Because I have this part of my life that I can just let myself go. And when I'm all perturbed inside and all the stuff we go through emotionally or, you know, with life, I walk until all of a sudden that, I think it's osmosis, nature kind of melts in and my troubles melt out without any effort. But I look for that. I look for that because you can go on a hike, if you take a walk, you can be thinking forever and you're thinking when you come home. If you're still watching the same movie, nothing changed. But I look for nature to come in me and for me to kind of go out. Because all my thoughts just melt. And I think kind of scientifically, those spirals take my stuff and put them in a more natural place. Because when it's problematic, it's in little boxes. It's all stuck in there. And it needs movement. So partly I use my walking for that movement and my breathing. And when I come to that empty place, all I am is the sound of that bird. All I am is the beauty of that rock. All of a sudden I've become beautiful inside. Where before I was just like, oh, yuck, you know. So I've found a way to empty myself so I become as beautiful as the earth that we live on. And to me that's a real important place for people to find, whether it's in front of an altar saying a certain prayer, or whether it's, you know, in nature, or whether it's in your room, you know, just being silent. It's really important. It's not even called spiritual. It's just called being at peace. So you can be right here in a moment with nothing else going on, but your heartbeat and your breath, and you feel this is life. This is excellent, you know. And whatever I do is going to be that excellent, and it's I live on that, you know. And when I'm doing projects in town, it shows. My exuberance shows because I trust life and I love life, and I know that there's a lot of connections that people are scared to make. That just through my fun in the '60s, it was allowed to continue a little longer than just my late teens. And now with my matureness and my mind getting whatever, I can put it into action. And because I'm grateful, and my way of showing gratitude is working with people, I'm helping change my community. Making a difference, so to speak. And, you know, 20 years ago, I just thought, oh, leave me alone, okay? But it's like with this exuberance, I have to share it. And I'm really grateful for Philip here to recognize that and invite me out here, because it's a little more confirmation on, yeah, you got something good to share. You know? So I'm really glad to be here and maybe give you some inspiration that being 45 even is okay. Because to me, it's like I can't wait to get older and see what that's like. You know, and wrinkles and gray hair. I mean, yeah, that'll be different. You know, it's all good. And if Grandma tells me otherwise, I just, she just missed out. Too bad, you know. I know it's good.
Should we have some questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, while you were talking about all this goodness and everything that went on in the '60s and like still going on for you, but how did, kind of twofold, how did it kind of settle down in your own person, and how did the whole movement end in the '70s or whenever it kind of came to a halt? Like for you personally, how did things kind of slow down, or how did you kind of find a little more structure, and then how did the whole movement end?
I was kind of a wandering gypsy with my son and my first husband, and we studied scriptures a lot. We studied natural healing, and we were subsidized by his inheritance. so we had no, had to work for anything. And then when I changed that, I lived in a commune, which is known as a commune. It was a intentional spiritual community, but without a leader, so to speak. And when my son was little, he lived there. It was like a little paradise for children. Lakes to swim in, and we all ate together, and we had dances like this, and saw a movie, and it was years of wonder. We would do events for people in town like once a year, and I just thought they were so grand, kind of pulling this energy in and manifesting it. I noticed that we did that. We made it so beautiful for hundreds of people for one day. I just thought, I'd like to be in a community that does that more. Just instead of just celebrating and whoever's here, it's like do it more for more people. Kind of pulling, the concept pulling spirit to earth, kind of changing the world through that. But that wasn't my idea then. Of just doing this more. It was a goodness shared among other people. So I moved to another community that was more disciplined, and it's still, that community is still in effect, and it's known as one of the cults just because it's so disciplined. It's very eclectic of different religions. It's called a cult because they don't know what to call it. Because we do the rosary, but we also do bhajans from India. We study different masters of different religions, and it's very disciplined. You're there working. I fed 350 people for 6 years in a kitchen with no pay. But the payoff was living in a community of people focused on praying for the earth, praying for ourselves. It was all focused around prayer. And take it for it was again a good experience.
Where was it?
And it was in Malibu, now they're in Montana.
What was it? Is the group having name?
Church Universal and Triumphant. It's the teachings of Saint Germain and Jesus. Who knows Saint Germain? But then we had Krishna, and we had, it was a conglomerate, and it was run by a woman. But I never talked to her in the 6 years. That's how, it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. I'm doing it. But that's broadening. Now that I'm older, I look back. Now I kind of want to talk to the main person and see what it is. But that comes with age. I want to know more how it works. My son at that time had moved to Arizona to live with his dad, and he visited me in my different places and really enjoyed himself. But I respected a boy being with his father, and then that kind of shifted. His dad was having a hard time with his life, and my son needed me, so I moved away. I moved away from all those years of living either on the road or in a community. And so that moved me off of mainstream hippie. Or this community, they don't look like hippies. Everyone's clean shaven, but it's definitely a new tradition. But I moved to Sedona, and I thought I was moving east, kind of away from all this awareness stuff. And Sedona's a mecca for metaphysical people. But I didn't know it, so it was kind of joke on you. You know the language, you're not going to get away from it. But I kind of ignored that community. I'm not real involved in people seeking and searching and awakening, though I'll never be off that myself. I don't feel I've ever changed. I've just changed communities, and I'm helping my town become more of a community. And it's people like me that make communities alive, I think. And I'm not going to be a bystander. I was a photographer, almost professionally. That's my parents' profession. But I set down my camera when I was on the caravan. I wish I'd taken more pictures, because boy, everybody looked so beautiful then. But I realized I was standing apart, and that's what I did so well, of observing, and I wanted to be a part of it. So that's why I'm not a photographer, because I want to be. So now I massage people. Now I'm a part of it. Hello. So that's my way of. I don't feel I've ever gotten out of that, though. I wear a uniform now. I'm a professional therapist. But in my hour of having people in my massage room, I feel what I'm doing is getting them in the moment, in their body, as much as possible. That's my job. And I'm getting paid good money to do it, without a degree. So it just, through my heart and my desire to really reach out and get people more whole, it's come that way. So I don't feel like I've ever copped out, so to speak. You know, they sold out, they're not a hippie anymore. You know, I don't feel like I have. Though people look at me and go, you are a hippie? It's like, that's why I'm growing my hair long again, because it's like, yeah, it doesn't show anymore, you know. Should have dressed a little more ethnic, funky here. So I don't feel like I've changed. The movement itself, so to speak, I feel like some people didn't have good experiences with me. Some people already were adults and already had a mind of taking for themselves. So maybe some of the drugs were like you saw in the movie, kind of given as a gift from an angel, and that's kind of the experience people had. It was just a whole celebratory ritual. You know, it was all just wonder. You saw everyone's auras, and you know, you just heard the music was just so magical. It was just, in that mode, it was good. But then somebody goes, oh, I'll sell that for $20 a piece and make some money, but we'll have to smuggle it in with guns, and you know, it was just darkness started coming around. Darkness, or oh, look at that naked lady. I can do something with her. You know, people just started having bad thoughts rather than just express and be innocent and happy. Some people just started taking from that, and I think that was the shift. And let alone, I mean, anything's good, someone's gonna want to market it. I went in one head shop in St. Louis on this caravan, and he had a lot of black and white stuff and a lot of rainbows. And I said, you know what, you should take all that black out of your store. Just have the rainbows. He didn't understand me. Because in the 60s, the rainbow cloth, etc., started coming out, but it still had black lines in between. And not till the 70s and 80s did all of a sudden pastel rainbows, just pastel, started coming out. And to me, that's a symbol of consciousness. Like all of a sudden it hit New York mainstream marketing and then was spread all over the country, this pastel softness, this innocence. At the same time, then money was made off of it, and it just started, it was the taking rather than the giving. That was the shift. And I feel that's this generation's next task, now that we understand the wholeness of Earth, and there's something about unity of people, and it has something to do with giving and not taking. You know, we feel like we can burn all these forests so we can have farmlands for cows or whatever. You know, it's like you can't take anymore, and we've taken so much, it's like, uh-oh, did we break it? You know, there's almost can the Earth be saved, or can our toxic bodies be saved? Did we break it? And that's kind of the pain that you guys are having to deal with. But then there's a memory of people being free and giving to each other. How do we get back to that? And it's to me, it's just those little glimmers of helping the guy in the supermarket with the card, or just winking at a little kid, telling him there's strangers out here that are friendly. That's where it has to start. Again.
Another question? What you kind of hinted at, what was the role of drugs and music and sex in that experience?
I think it was part of letting go of the structure, being in the moment. And I'm sure when women started getting pregnant, it was, oh, rude awakening, you know, there's responsibility here. But if they were truly in the spirit of that, that was taken care of too. You know, you were part of the tribe, and you know, you've seen pictures of little hippie kids. And the man I met with my son, he was he had long hair and a beard. And on the caravan, I remember looking out at couples. It's the first time I really noticed people a little older than me having a relationship with kids. I thought, that looks good. So it kind of woke up in me. That's kind of a late bloomer, but it woke up in me. Oh, boy meets girl. I like that, you know. So when I ended up in LA and met my first husband, I was ready, you know. So it was just kind of like, it wasn't a sense of, well, who are you? What's your background? We got to get to know each other. It's like, okay. He started singing some magical poetry, and off we walked into the sunset. You know, 7 years later, I woke up and said, oh, I want to do something else. So there was kind of a spontaneity of kind of experimenting with this energy that our parents knew nothing of. And it was all borderline, because drugs can do weird things, but then there was no question. And I think because of my devotional nature and my nature of goodness and maybe wanting to, how do you pray, any medication, so to speak, any drugs I took me to that way. It's kind of like that movie The Mask, where the attitude of the person, whoever puts this mask on, is magnified 1,000 times of who he is, and that's who he becomes. I think the drugs in those days, that's about all they did. So if someone had a really bad past or really bad intentions, that got magnified, and that's where it was bad. Because it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, we're trying to get to the purest energy that's available, and the rock and roll was like the loudest, most intensity of trying to express what this energy was, and the drugs would blast you open, so all you were was energy, and sex is kind of the most intense energy a human can get into. So it was all, okay, how can we make it the intensest and make it a good trip? And that was the question. And that's what you guys, how can we make it a good, call it a trip? It's about compassion. But in those days, this guy was the first guy I think that talked about compassion and truth. So in those days, it was just, but again, and when somebody said, okay, how many women can I see in one night, then they started taking, see? And that's when it twisted.
Excuse me, I'll use some of your herbal medicines. In so many ways you're talking about in the kind of the, just so many of the, even the sex and the drugs and so a lot of the ways, even the poorness, just going and living in the moment and being who you are, that era and who you were, it sounds so much like the ghettos and the slums and impoverished cultures that just live in the moment and it's here, but as similar as those are, they're also completely different. And I was wondering why you think kind of the way you are, and the way that era was, one of them led to happiness and hopefulness, and the other one leads to emptiness and depression and hopelessness. And I guess when we try to counter the crime that stems from the ghettos, we look towards how can we make those areas wealthier. Is that the best way to look at creating a better world in those areas?
I think it's a sense of belonging, that sense, I like the word tribe. Some of those posters that Mouse made said tribal stomp. That was a real good, it was the sense of unity. People in the slums have that sense of unity and kind of brotherhood. Just, they know if some stranger comes into their area of town, because they protect each other, but it's a kind of a harshness. It's kind of a fear and a defensiveness, where the 60s was more an open, anyone belonged, anyone was welcome. We trust everyone. It wasn't a defensive, we have to do this to survive. So we have to open and accept everyone to survive. So it was just a different way. And so to go into third world places or slums and say, well, just open and accept everything. I mean, it wouldn't work. And yet to say, okay, well, you get a job, you plan it this way, I've been working with tribal people a lot, and I don't think they'll ever just get a job and mesh into this culture. That's not how their mind works. They have that open sharingness. If they have something, if you give them $1,000, they'll spread it out. And a lot of the money will be misused, but they'll share it immediately. So they have that sense of unity, but it doesn't work in our society. Because what are they going to have tomorrow? So, it's kind of a hard question.
Could you see that?
You're telling me also that one of the ways you stay in the moment is through engaging in tribal practices. Can you describe some of that?
Okay. part of the earth walks I described when I first was getting to know Al, my former husband. I take him out on hikes, and he said, "No, an Indian woman has never done this for me." Like, what? They'd more take him to a bar or do something social, and so just to say that's not really tribal. It is in our big image of what an Indian is, using nature for their spirituality and peace, but a lot of them have forgotten. But there are some ceremonies that they still do, and one of them being the sweat lodge. It's made on the earth, a little hut of willows, and you go inside and rocks are heated out in a fire for 2 hours, so they're glowing red hot. They're brought inside the structure. Everyone's sitting on the earth. They close the door, and they call it the womb of the Mother Earth. So you're inside the womb. It's dark. It's hot. And as the person is pouring water, it gets hotter. It's hot steam. And my daughter has been in them since she was in my womb. So to her, it's just how it is. It's what her mom and dad does. So it's very interesting. Who knows how hot that gets? Your ears tingle. Your skin gets blotched. It is hotter than a sauna. And yet, she lays down and back, covers herself. "Mom, it's hot." "Yeah." Or, it just is. It's not good or bad to her. So it's a real neat perspective for adults that go in there for the first time, feel like they can't breathe. But the whole idea is the heat is so intense to get you right here. And especially the Plains Indian seem to use intensity for their spirituality, to get you right here. And what happens when you're right here, that whole expansion and anything's possible, well, they haven't really put that to use. And I feel like there's going to be an exchange between my heritage and theirs of, well, how do you put it to use now? Because they're just getting back to this intensity of, you get in a hot sweat lodge, you get so hot you can't even think. It's like your mind gets burned. Forget about getting fried with drugs. In this hot sweat lodge, you just, all you can think of is your next breath. Where's my next breath coming from? But I'm pretty used to it now. And like I said, I like intensity. It's just, I just relax. I kind of let that heat go to where it feels like I need medicated, either mentally, emotionally, or physically. And I let that heat go there, kind of breathe it in there, and then that heat sometimes just kind of goes, and then I feel cool. It's like, heat's only hot when your mind says it's hot, and it's only hot when it's hitting against something that's tight, and then when that relaxes, either your mind or your body, it's not hot anymore. Last I found, nobody told me that one. In other words, I got so present, nothing bothered me, not even the heat. And I think that's, when something bothers you, if you can get so present, then all of a sudden you realize this is their problem. Or when you relax, when you're relaxed, that's why my advertisement for a massage, when you're relaxed, you can do so much better, because you're just right here. It's not like, uh-oh, what if that happens, or that person is really, then you see it's their problem, and maybe you can help them, or you see, oh, this is, so I can see how the native people use, at least the plains, other native people don't use intensity quite the way that the plains people do.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, what is it like in your work, like when you massage people, and like, I don't know what it feels like when you do it. Do you like when they start relaxing?
Feels
like,
good.
Well, people say, what kind of massage you do? I mean, they want a technical explanation of like, what camera do you use? It's like, I love the word intuitive eclectic. But it's kind of a mouthful, and I have to think too hard. So I just say deep Swedish. I have really strong hands. Now I'll finger wrestle anybody. But and pressure points. So it's real flowing, and what that does, it takes your thoughts. When all of a sudden, after you get rid of your inhibitions of somebody's touching me, I don't know who they are. It feels good, and that's finally your mind just clicks over to it. It feels good. It's okay. I'm safe. And this flowing motion takes your thoughts, and it's slow, and there's slow music playing. All of a sudden, your thoughts are doing this. Your thoughts are doing this, because if you can make a pattern of your thoughts, they're kind of, or just, all of a sudden it takes the thoughts and just kind of just to say your mind makes, again, how tense your body is. So when your body's starting to go like this, so is your mind. People come out there kind of disoriented, and you should have seen this guy. No. How do where do I sign? What, and I go, God, this is good. You've relaxed. This is how you're supposed to be. And they're like, oh, geez, But most people do not live their day-to-day life in a relaxed, normal. It's not, almost like we've forgotten what normal is, because we're so, freeway, step on the brake, phone call, creak the shoulder up for an hour talking on your phone. It's like we don't know what just relax is anymore. So it's so fun to do massage on people nowadays. In 1 hour, they're like, wow, this is, ooh, I can't function. It's like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. It just helps you flow easier. And you almost feel like a dancer. You almost feel smoothed out. Everything's okay. It's just like a baby that's crying and crying and crying, and finally somebody they know picks them up and comforts them. That's what it's like. Because your muscles are just like, nobody cares, nobody, because the connection to the brain is turned off because it's too much pain, too long, and it's just gone numb. All of a sudden somebody's like taking care of it and moving out the tension, and it's okay, it's okay. So it's a real kind job.
Are there any other things you do to stay in the moment that they might also use?
Breathing. If you're ever having a really hard time or you have a test coming up, even my mother said, take 5 minutes and do nothing. She must have heard it somewhere, and she never did it probably. And how often do I do it? But okay, I'm just telling you in case you need this. Just stop where you are, sit in your car where no one's going to see you, or in your room where you know you're not going to have any disturbances. Take 10 breaths and count them. 10, breathe in. And you're counting them just kind of just distract your mind. Really, you could just sit there and breathe, but then you need your mind to focus on something at first. Just take 10 deep breaths and count each one. And you'll find that you lose track of counting. You start relaxing so much, or, but if you can do those 10 successfully, then just feel a moment how you feel. Check in with that place. It's kind of like checking in with yourself after a massage. Check in with that place, see what it feels like. You've reminded yourself right then that you can stop, let go, and just be with yourself. How often do we do that? And just that your breath is always there and it's nothing metaphysical or weird. But how often, most people breathe like from here to here. If you breathe from here to here, you're energized, just physiologically, you're energizing your body immensely. But just because you told your mind you're going to stop, take 10 breaths and nothing else, again, you're just making the whole universe focus right on you. And neat things will happen. I mean, I'd love to come back and see what happens just from that.
Any other questions or comments? John?
For people who weren't fortunate enough to be through or live through the 60s, what would be the 2 or 3 biggest things that you would like the next generation or a couple of generations later to take with us or to learn from you and your cohort?
The best stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be the best if you have negative things.
How many? 3?
Well, as many.
Okay.
I don't want to limit you, actually.
Now that my daughter's real playful and I've gotten more into it, I could say, number 1, be spontaneous. Trust your intuition. And once you're parents, that is the main key. Trust your intuition. So be spontaneous. Because when you get that little nudge of like, I wonder if I should do something, do it. And I don't mean, morally right or wrong, major things, but just those little things, those little things that make a sparkle of life. Well, no, that's too goofy, or that's too... Just especially at your age, you guys have permission to do anything, now or when you're 80, in between. I hope you don't forget.
So playfulness.
Spontaneity. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be playful. It could just be, how are you doing today? And just caring. And trusting your intuition. They kind of go one-to-one, but trusting your intuition from test questions to, who should I go see today, or who should I call? Because to me, once you trust that, that wasn't drilled in enough to me with my last marriage. I didn't trust it. And It took a long time to get that back. Do something for yourself every day. That wasn't a conscious thing in the 60s, I think. Everything was for ourselves. It looked, towards the 70s, it looked kind of hedonistic. In fact, I was in Marin in a hot tub with some friends, just hanging out, and they said, oh, there's a special on Marin County. So we went over to this place to look at it, and they were talking about hedonistic Marin, all the people in hot tubs. Oh, that's me. But that wasn't it. Yes, we were focused on ourselves, but so we could learn how to give better.
See, but that's different what you just said. I mean, it's focus on yourself so that you're in a place where you can give to others.
Yeah, so
rather
I'm
than
saying,
take from them.
take care of yourself every day. Do something that's for me, whether it's those 10 breaths, or I'm gonna fix this food that I really feel good about eating. I mean, I don't mean a bag of potato chips, but something that's nurturing to yourself. I'm gonna go get a massage. I'm gonna go to Sedona and get a massage. Do something for yourself, because nobody else can. When you all are married and sitting around and you want your mate to do something for you, well, what have I done for myself today? Always, you know, it might look self-centered, but if you don't start doing it, then your mate or whoever, oh, that's what they like to do for themselves. They're gonna support you. But if you expect it all from the world or your mate, nobody cares about me. Nobody, it's not going to work. Only you can take care of yourself. And I think the 60s was just blown way up. And then evolving out of that was, after you've taken care of yourself, do something for somebody else. And that they weren't expecting. To me, that's the way to get to the next level of whatever, of promotion in your job, of consciousness. You got to get it real full here. If you haven't done something for yourself yet, it's not going to work. But if you have, and then this is kind of beyond 60s. Then give it out. Just do something for somebody else. That's worthless.
Meredith, do you have anything to add? From your
I think
experience?
she just said it all.
I have another question then. Why have you not gotten into the New Age spirituality of Sedona these days?
Well, it's like people that came to Al's Sweat Lodge. They go, oh, I found it. This is what I've been looking for. I've never had that experience of finding a teacher, finding a spiritual way. Because purposefully, I visited many altars, from Japanese to going into Chinatown to their little altars there and praying in front of them, and Krishna. And to me, devotion is all the same, and that spirituality. So it's not. There's a lot of people come to Sedona that are still seeking for that way to give, that way to make themselves whole, and that way to give. And they find or they become a channel of a angel or a space being, or they find a way to do that. But I think I've kind of found a way to do that that's kind of human, and I'm not attached to a way. And I think a lot of people come to Sedona, even though the most people that come there, I don't know, they're not real active in the community, in the real world, so to speak, and yet they're very active in the spiritual world. Like they'll channel towards groups of 20 people every month. They do this great words, but what their actions are, there's no actions that I can really see. Or they might do healings on people, but it's very etheric. It's not. I'm not to discount that they don't say good words and do miracles, but that's not what I want to be working more physically now. I want to. And I'm not one to say what I'm doing is more than theirs, because maybe they're working on more subtle levels that are shifting. But to me, it's too, it's not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not fun.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On Wednesday, Wednesday, we move from the sublime and wonderful to your examination. So we will see you then.
What are the 4 things you're supposed to do between now and 80? Well, I'm giving them a spontaneous. Remind me.
Spontaneity, intuition, give back to other people. All right.